Okay. Okay. All right. Go.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Konbawa, I guess, whatever. Welcome to the City Pop of Japan during the 1980s. Thank you for joining us during this anime festival. So I don't even know what this is called. What is this called?
Anime Destiny.
I'm sorry, Anime Destiny. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll give you our own point of view of City Pop. And we'll go through suggestive listenings. We'll talk about some artists. And Al's gonna do a little DJ set for you guys, and we'll just kind of share some vinyl about like what, if you guys are interested in this, like what to get, and where it's going now. And yeah, it's just kind of a perspective. So we're not totally like the experts, but we're fans.
Yeah.
So there's like an appreciation of us.
I mean, this is a genre I've been listening to like when I started listening to anime, pretty much back in the 80s and 90s. And I didn't realize that it was called City Pop back then. Back then it was just called J-Pop. It was just, the 1980s and the 1990s, popular music for various media outlets, especially in various anime. So we're gonna show like a documentary, and we'll show a couple clips from anime such as like City Hunter and Ranma One Half, and I don't know, Megazone 23. These are old animes back in the 80s and 90s that use this genre that didn't actually last that long. So we'll talk about, but for some reason though, it has come back strong in the 21st century. With the beginnings of vaporwave and synthwave and future funk. We just came back from Japan 3 months ago, and every single record store. Oh, a month? Has it been a month already? Oh yeah, something like that. But literally in every single record store, City Pop was like the #1 hit item that they even jacked up the rate. It was like, I don't know what, 10,000 yen. Like that's $100 per record or something like that. $40 equivalent.
So we'll get into those things.
So I'm glad it's a genre that's coming back. It's coming back really strong. So, all right.
So just to go over our agenda, what we're going to talk to you guys about, we're going to introduce ourselves. We kind of gave you a little taste of, our childhood. We're going to define City Pop. Again, we're just going to share City Pop from our point of view. Give you some suggestive listening. So I brought some vinyl. Al has some stuff on his DJ software right here. We have some links to some media that we created for you guys, and some suggestive YouTube pages and social media sites if you guys really want to dive into this, and YouTube pages, because those are like rabbit holes. We'll answer some questions, and then Al's going to finish off with a little DJ set for you guys. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
Just to introduce myself, my name is DJ Al Striker. Some of my anime influences growing up was definitely all the Macrosses growing up for Robotech when it was called Robotech in America, Macross in Japan. Definitely Gunbuster. That's one of my major anime back in 1988 that I watched that showed some form of City Pop influence, as well as the big hit of the company called Gainax. Currently, I am watching Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the new version, the Daitis. I do like a lot of politics, and I do like a lot of like space opera, space battles and stuff like that. Of course, I'm a fan of Akira, as well as One Punch Man. Some of my major influences growing up as a DJ, definitely all the hip-hop forms of hip-hop and funk and soul, reggae dancehall. Definitely City Pop is my new thing because it's a genre that that's getting popular, and I appreciate it back then, I want to appreciate it now. And then just some of my hobbies, definitely a vinyl hunter still, so for those records. Anime binging here and there, and I do a lot of digital art photography. And I used to be a business media intern back in the day. That was like my first job out of college. And currently I am a social studies teacher, and I'm still a DJ and an artist as well. All right, thank you.
Cool. Real quick to transition. So Al has, you had a nanny that was a Japanese lady? Yeah. So he kind of grew up like with Japanese culture around him. My dad used to be married to a Japanese lady before he met my mom. We're both Filipino. My dad lived in Osaka for a little bit, and he'd always buy me Godzilla videos when we were a kid. We would just always watch the dubs, oh, what's going on here? We loved it, but it's just, we didn't realize what was going on. So yeah, influences, we're 80s kids, we love, well sorry, I'm gonna speak about myself. I love 80s anime. Grew up watching Robotech, Voltron, without knowing the Japanese origin, so I always thought it was American, but it was Japanese. I guess in the 90s, like the Cowboy Bebop, and Samurai Shampoo. We actually know the guy that did the rap the lyrics of Samurai Shampoo, Shingo O2, if you guys don't know. He used to go to Berkeley. So when he wrote the lyrics for the intro for Samurai Shampoo, he was going to Berkeley and traveled between here and Tokyo back in the day. Influences, definitely hip hop. We're from hip hop. Like my brothers were like Graph Riders, DJs, and you know we just kind of kept going, funk, soul, and that's why we have a relationship with City Pop because it has those origins. Hobbies, of course, collecting vinyl. Going to Japan, I spent a lot of money. I don't regret it, but yeah, this is what it is. But we collect other vinyl too, other hard to find hip hop, funk, rare grooves, breaks, all that stuff. But yeah, YouTube rabbit holes, and that's kind of where we discovered all this. Just kind of doing the YouTube rabbit holes for like 3 hours. It's like, wow, what is that? Where am I going? Where is this taking me? So, and then yes, I'm an educator. I used to be a former battle DJ. I work at Balboa, so if anyone's from the city, I work at Balboa right now. I'm a BAPA teacher. I teach DJ audio and media production class, so like we do like legit stuff at the school level. So we love our lives, I guess. Yeah.
So basically, what is city pop? So here's a good definition of city pop from a journalist that did a story in 2015 about city pop. And basically, it's a music style that was booming in Japan during the late 70s and early 80s. That was called city pop. When I was growing up, I basically just called it like Japanese funk, Japanese J-pop. That was just what it was called at the time. He called it an opulent cross-pollination of pop, disco, funk, R&B, boogie, jazz fusion, Latin, Caribbean, and Polynesian music. The genre was tied to the tech-fueled economic bubble and the wealthy new leisure class it created. So if you ever listen to city pop, it has that like cool vibe feel. It's the concept of during the 1980s when things was when the Japan was like, I think by far it hit the second biggest economy other than the United States. That was the prosperity times. That's when everyone like had money. Everyone was buying cars. I heard the term like our tour guide in Japan said, if you're gonna buy a car, buy at least every car for your kid. This is before the Shinkansen was popular for mass transit and all that stuff that we see today. It was a time of a lot of cross-pollination of different genres of music coming in from Europe, from America. So during the 1980s, we had a genre called New Wave. That's definitely coming in from Europe, influencing there. All the EDM stuff, electronic music from Europe, influencing all the the Americans, and as well as in Japan as well. So that created the concept of city pop. So when you start hearing the music, you hear different elements of R&B, and I don't know, think of like the various genres from the United States during the 1980s, like Madonna, or Duran Duran, Depeche Mode. Even the hip hop back then, like, Africa Bambaataa, various, like the concept of using a synthesizer. That's like, Japan was making it, America was making it, they were integrating it, they were learning different music, and then also the cross-pollination of different music transported between the seas before the internet was created. They're getting all these vinyls, hearing it from America, and then they're making their own. And then if you look at some of the pop stars, they kind of like wearing the same thing like in America, with all that, very vibrant colors, very, just the look. You can tell the look is definitely a cross-pollination between Japan and America here. So that's definitely a good definition of city pop. Okay, that's good.
Okay, so this is kind of my take. We kind of gave you like a journalist, maybe more, I guess more official definition. So this is our take, or combined. We may not agree on every single thing, but we definitely believe city pop is influenced by African American music, specifically late 70s disco, early 80s boogie funk. We think there's a heavy influence there. There was artists like George Duke that was traveling to Japan doing shows in the early 80s, and I feel like them having a lot of big artists over to play kind of influenced the local musicians. Yeah, and it sounds a lot like boogie funk from the 1980s. I don't know how to describe it. If you guys are familiar, it's stuff from like 81 to 83. It could go on further, but there's like a certain distinct sound. It sounds a little disco-y, but there's like some funky bass lines in the background. Japanese labels had a ton of funding to fly out American musicians to play on these records. And also, Japanese artists were getting all this stuff mastered in New York, so there's a lot of back and forth. So if you ever come across a city pop record, I think I might have one here. A lot of them have the background of the Twin Towers. This one has Manhattan. So, this is Toshiki Kazumatsu. He has like 2 or 3 albums where he's like behind or in front of Manhattan. But a good amount of artists during that time were taking pictures by the old Twin Towers. Pretty interesting to see. But we do believe city pop is very distinct in itself. We know it's like Japanese when we hear it. It's funky, but it's definitely Japanese. There's something Japanese about it. During that time too, there was bubbling similar music scenes. Brazil was having theirs. England, they had like Britpop. So there's groups called like Cool Notes. If you guys ever want to do another YouTube binge, they have some similar sounds that was happening in Britain and in Japan at that time. Also, Italio Disco, same thing. They just had their own rendition of it. And actually they were flying Italian disco artists to Japan too. There's a group called Bay or something. They came out in the late 80s and 90s. They're more pop, but they covered a couple Italian disco songs. Give Me Up or something, if you guys want to look that up. Currently, city pop is tied to a lot of like new stuff. A lot of people are taking old music and remaking it into their own. A lot of vaporwave, synthwave, future funk, modern funk. I believe a lot of this centers on an artist named Dan Funk because he brought the term modern funk within this last decade and it's kind of brewed all over, like here, in Europe, and everywhere else.
So this is a great video. It's very concise, very straight to the point about city pop, and it also because the guy also talks about how they use city pop in anime during the 1980s, and so he shows some of the anime labels I talked about, like such as Ranma or City Hunter, and how it became very popular. You know, so let me just cue it up real quick.
City pop has its roots in the US military's post-World War II occupation of Japan. Bars and clubs catering to American soldiers helped popularize classic disco and funk music, despite Japan's notorious indifference to foreign culture. As city pop emerged from the musical underground, it became the definitive soundtrack for this new age. The sound appropriated many familiar tropes of Western funk and jazz: four-to-the-floor disco beats, brassy and rhythmic horns, and funk syncopation, all layered over complex and improvisational melodies. This was pitch-perfect music for a modern, technological paradise, a sound that was at once familiar and yet also achingly nostalgic. It was, to quote one of the quintessential city pop artists of the era, a perfect plastic love.
I'm just playing games. I know that's plastic love. I know that plastic love. Dancing a plastic beat. Another morning gone.
The city pop approach to production and songwriting is totally earnest and heart-on-sleeve sincere, reflecting the country's prosperity and newfound cosmopolitanism, and the belief that things would only keep getting better. The genre finally entered the Japanese mainstream in 1980 with Tatsuro Yamashida's hit single, Ride on Time. Yamashita was one half of the band Sugar Babe before starting his solo career, and he quickly became one of city pop's foundational artists, releasing million-selling albums like Melodies and For You. The 80s also saw many female artists break out of the girl group mold and become city pop stars in their own right. Iconic singers like Miki Matsubara, Junko Ohashi, Tomoko Aran, and the author of Plastic Love herself, Maria Takeuchi. Fun fact, Tatsuro Yamashita and Maria Takeuchi got married in 1982, and they're still together today. And the genre's sleek, futuristic sound was made possible thanks to new technology like pulse code modulation, or PCM, and similar advances in digital audio recording. The booming economy of 1980s Japan made it that much easier for artists to secure major funding from labels, and city pop became some of the most cutting-edge music made anywhere in the world. But technology influenced more than just the recording process. It also left its mark on the form of city pop, how it was played, and where it was heard. The rise of city pop coincided with numerous technological breakthroughs in mobile stereo systems, especially car stereos. It's why so much of the imagery and iconography of this music might already be keenly familiar to you. Cars and pedestrians gliding effortlessly through nighttime cityscapes underneath a canopy of dazzling neon. Well, that's because this music was recorded with car stereos and portable radios in mind. In much the same way that the synthesizer-driven pop music of the 1980s US and UK was informed by the technology of the era, so too was city pop. But by the early 90s, the Japanese dream of hyper-capitalist dominance vanished, almost overnight. The bubble era ended, and the Japanese economy came crashing down with it, leading to what historians call Japan's lost decade of the 1990s, a decade-long depression that the country still hasn't fully recovered from. The dreamy and ethereal optimism of city pop had no place in this brutal new reality. The genre quickly fell out of favor among younger listeners who could no longer relate to such carefree music or the bygone era it represented. But that wasn't the end of city pop. If, like so many Westerners, you grew up during the Japanese pop culture explosion of the 90s and 2000s, this music has an instantly recognizable, even nostalgic quality to it. You see, city pop artists were responsible for some of the most iconic anime theme music of all time, like Hiroko Moriguchi's rendition of the Zeta Gundam opening anthem. Or, like Smile Bomb by Matsuko Mawatari, the theme music for Yu Yu Hakusho. Or Miho Morikawa's Positive, one of Ranma 1/2's ending theme songs. It's a thread that carries on to this very day. City pop godfather Tatsuro Yamashita himself wrote and performed the ending theme song of the 2018 anime film Mirai no Mirai.
My baby go, cute, cute, 構図して cute, cute 抱きしめたら sweet, sweet 甘い匂いがする
And the sprawling influence of city pop isn't confined solely to anime. Take a listen to 1983's Summer Breeze by Piper. Does it remind you of anything? And speaking of Mario, how about the World 3 theme music of Super Mario World 3? If you slow things down a bit, you just might recognize the soulful melodies of Yes, Tatsuro Yamashita, from the 1982 single Morning Glory. I could keep listing examples, but maybe you're starting to get the picture already. Anime and video game fans already have a deep and abiding connection to this music, even if we can't exactly put a name to it. Of course, anime and video games were some of the only ways that Western audiences could be exposed to city pop in the first place. Big-name artists were never given a second thought by major labels outside of Japan, since it was assumed that there would be little appetite internationally for such a distinctly Japanese genre of music. Even Tatsuro Yamashita, the godfather of city pop, has never had an official album release in the West. Until very recently, your only choice was to scour YouTube for bootleg uploads, but too often they'd be hit with copyright claims and be made unavailable in Western countries, or just disappear entirely. For the longest time, if you were interested in this music, your only choice was to pay way too much to import physical records from Japan.
So you heard a little sample of the kind of overview, and then some of the artists we're going to touch on. Tatsuro Yamashita, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we kind of consider him like the godfather of this in a way. I feel like he kind of centers around a lot of this sound, along with you guys all know Plastic Love? Yeah, okay. First, that's like a viral hit. I didn't even know that was a really popular song until like other people started telling me about it. Like I just liked it when I heard it, and then it's a really good song. Yeah.
Very good producer.
It gives you those feels. I don't know. That's just me though.
Yeah. It's such a
Did you ever like notice the motif? It's like all about good times. It's all about having a good time because the times are good. The 1980s was the bubble era where, you know, everyone had like some sort of wealth. It was the number 2 economy in the world. And so along with access to wealth was access to music culture from around the world. Okay. Yeah. So this is just some of the suggested listing of various artists and albums. And so, of course, you know, you heard just a sample of Tatsuro Yamashita. You know, other artists, you know, from back in the 80s, you know, Mami Ayukawa, you know, Takeuchi Maria, definitely the big ones. But then there's like, for me, the ones I like listening to are the new artists of today, the 21st century. You know, if you've heard on YouTube or SoundCloud or Bandcamp, you know, I heard these artists, you know, even in Japan when I was there, when we were out DJing in Japan, and I heard the DJ and he was playing some of these. So, you know, Kaz was playing that stuff earlier. He was playing an artist called Bay, like Tempo, and of course, I love this one just because I love the name Macross 8299. So.
And actually, the DJ we DJ with, he's like in Japan, in Tokyo. He's from Tokyo. He actually didn't realize all this was big. It feels like this is more of an international thing than like a local Tokyo thing. Just talking to locals out there. They're not like, I guess they just think this is old music.
Yeah.
So they're kind of taking for granted. But when we were in Tokyo, we saw other like Europeans and Americans like digging like with us. So we were just trying to like dig away from them. Like if we saw someone, we just grab like, nah, we're buying this.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff's really like price heavy. I got this record. This is I got this record 2 years ago. It was only this year when we went, and it was going for 50. Yeah. And like Plastic Love, I saw that on eBay the other day, just for that LP. It was around like $80. So I don't know how you guys spend your money, but I have a threshold to buy. I know like if it was $20 at least. Yeah. But if you really need to have it, then by all means. I think I may bite the bullet on Plastic Love sooner or later. I must, I think.
I mean, I saw Plastic Love at Amoeba in San Francisco, and that thing was titled at $300 on the wall. It's like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm gonna pay that. But then it is iconic, and it was a first edition, and it was dated back, you know, from the 1980s. So yeah, if I had the money, sure, why not? But definitely, you know, like I said, when we were going out to record stores out there, they were inflating the prices because a lot of tourists, and maybe even like say local DJs from Japan, but mostly people from America and Europe, were willing to pay that much. And it was always headlined, like, you know, on the J-pop section over their current stuff. You know, I'm a big fan of like say Imi and all those other artists of the current J-pop, but the city pop was always in the front because they knew it was a genre that was gaining reputation around the world. So.
Suckers like us will buy it.
I know,
Oh shit. Yeah. So we'll just go over some links. So I feel bad because I bought my turntable and I forgot to change the battery. Thank God for YouTube. So I do have a vinyl. This is not fake. These are real vinyls. So I'll play like an example of some of the artists that I would suggest to look into to go into YouTube rabbit holes. And then if you guys want to rip them, whatever, however you guys want to consume your music, by all means. So we'll play Toshiki Kadomatsu first. Real quick about him, he's one of those artists that like work with American musicians.
Yep.
So he's playing Lucky Lady on this album. So the production is really good for the 80s. When I hear this, I think of like wealth, I guess,
Yeah.
prosperity.
I mean, also the synthesizer back then was like, oh my god, so expensive. Today, you know, we can do it on our phones, you know, we can do it with tablets, but back then getting a synthesizer was very difficult, and especially it comes from a place where they made synthesizers. So they made this distinct electronic sound.
Have you guys ever heard this song? It's okay, yeah. This is a good place to do that.
Got the VR background. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next one, just for time's sake.
Alright.
All right, so real quick, I just want to show an example of influence this guy had. He was influenced by American artists and he influenced other J-pop, city pop artists. Can you play this one, world famous Supreme Team, hey DJ?
I like it.
So this is a hip hop group from the early 80s. They work with a British producer named Malcolm McLaren. They're called the world famous Supreme Team. They came out with songs called like Buffalo, Gals, world famous. But they had a song called Hey DJ. Go ahead, play it. Just play like 30 seconds of it and then I'm gonna hit it. Okay, so just listen to this intro.
I'd like to dedicate this record to all the DJs in the entire world. And all the ladies, sing along, huh?
Now, we're going to go back to Toshiki Katamatsu. We're going to play Secret Lover. Just listen to the distinct similarities.
Which one?
Toshiki Katamatsu, Secret Lover. Have you guys heard of Toshiki Katamatsu?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There's a lot of videos on YouTube live. Great live musician.
This one?
This song is dedicated for Steve. You so sexy. When sexy lady. Really want you stay at my house tonight. Really want you ways to go to me. Really cute, go to me. Give me some loving, give me some more.
Okay, so did that sound very similar? Like almost a ripoff? I like to think he was influenced, maybe he appropriated it, I don't know, however you want to look at it. He sampled it possibly, or they just like, oh, we like that one, let's play it like that. And they just do other lyrics on it. So however you want to interpret that. Anyways, he was influenced heavily through, American musicians, mainly African American musicians that were doing this sound, this funk sound in the early 80s. But he did influence other artists. Adri, have you heard of Adri? Yeah. Okay, so Adri, he produced this. Sorry, I won't play it, just if you guys want to take a picture of it. Really dope album. If you're lucky to find this here, I've heard stories you can find it for $1
No way.
at a thrift store that people don't know what it is. Now, I want to transition into this lady, Miho Nakayama. Have you guys heard of her? Okay, so we're going to play, so Toshiki Katamatsu produced this album, Catch the Night. So play Overture. Just do a Catch the Night, Miho Nakayama. Just going to play the intro and the first part of one of our songs here, Misty Love.
So which one?
Play this one.
This one?
Yeah.
Good part?
So this is all produced by Toshiki Katamatsu. So this guy, we're still on this guy. So it sounds really magical, I don't know. When I first heard this, I was kind of like taken aback, like, wow, this is like beautiful. This is just the intro. Yeah, very synth heavy. So just wait for she'll start singing and we'll go from there. Baseline. Okay, so you guys get that one. Sticking with her, because so this came out in 1988. The sound was evolving. Sticking with her, this album is called Angel Hearts. I found this last time I went to Japan. I was really fucking happy when I found this one. I'm not gonna lie. So there's a song on here called Witches. I just want to point this one out because another person produced this. Her name is Cindy. You guys have heard of Cindy before? Anybody? Okay, cool. She has done a lot of albums in the past. Earlier in the 80s, she worked with Stevie Wonder on a couple songs. She also, if you YouTube Janet Jackson Japanese commercial, she's like doing a moonwalk. It's like a Japanese commercial. But this lady named Cindy is singing the song to that. At first I thought it was Janet Jackson, but I went into the YouTube poll, and then I found out it was a lady named Cindy. Upon more research, YouTube and stuff, I learned she produced this album called Angel Hearts by Milo Nakayama, so we're still with her. I want to play one song called Witches. Have you guys heard of that song before? No? Okay. You guys are familiar with like Alexander O'Neill, Sherelle, so think along the lines of that, okay?
So which one
Do Witches.
This one? Yeah.
Okay, so that's just a sample of that song, produced by Cindy. So these are just kind of like the layers, the connections with the artists, and it all dates back to American Western influence. So we'll go back to the page. I'll hand it off to Al, but these are my suggestions. And these are just the sounds I like, okay? So you may or may not like what I share, but these are like the things that we discovered, I discovered through listening to all this.
Just real quick, I just wanted to show one clip where I think Dynex during the late 1980s did a city pop influence song for one scene, if you heard this anime called Gunbuster. And if you guys saw this one scene, yeah, it's very, very city pop. Like, it's leading towards like the faster J-pop that we're getting to in the 90s of J-pop music, but it had elements because it has the synths, has the horns, and it definitely just, you know, they definitely designed this one scene using a city pop influence. And I like it. I mean, just give you a backstory if you guys have ever seen Gunbuster at the scene. Basically, a whole bunch of aliens the size, I think, of the size of Earth, and like 100 billion of them are going to come to Earth and kill everyone. And the Gunbuster team has to go into the machine, the robot machine called Gunbuster, and you have to destroy it. Basically, the they have to fly like their old ship into the middle of the alien fleet and explode it using a black hole bomb. So, and just listen to the song here, along with the dialogue. It's pretty cool.
それならこのままもう会えなくなってしまうなんて絶対に嫌。お姉様、しっかりしてください。このままじゃやられてしまうわ。コーチの6ヶ月はどうなるの？本当はコーチだってお姉様と一緒にいたいはずよ。最後の6ヶ月よ。本当は肉など抱きしめてやりたかったはずよ。それをコーチは自分を捨てて、その半年を私たちにガンバスターにかけたのよ。これはその6ヶ月なのよ、お姉様。いいえ、コーチだけじゃないわ。キムコもユングも自分たちの未来をみんな私たち2人に託したのよ。その私たちが負けたらみんな今まで何のために生きてきたのよ。私たちは必ず勝たなきゃいけないのよ。お願い、カズミ、戦って分かったわ、ノリコ。合体しましょう。お姉様。あなたの6ヶ月、この6ヶ月戦ってみせるわ。あなたのために。それがあなたと同じ時を生きる唯一の方法なのね。ノリコ、エクセリオンは健在。私たちの左下方にいるわ。お姉様、あれを使うわ。え、よくってよ。合体したガンバスターをただのマシンと思わないでよ。コーチの心がこもってるんだからノリ、敵機直上、急降下。下からも来るわ。約3000。みんなの未来、私たちの未来、ガンバスターで作ってみせる。その通りよ。だから邪魔しないで。バスターミサイル。ノリコ、離れて。直営に入るわ。反撃が来るわ。敵をこちらに引きつけるのよ。できるだけ多く、できるだけ遠くに来るわ。集中砲火約2万。バスターシールド。そんなもので私たちがやられると思って。あと2000万キロ、それまで持てばいいわ。下も参ったわね。まさかこんなものもあったなんて思ってもみなかったわ。さすがね。でもコーチの作ったガンバスター、甘く見ないでほしいわ。ダブルバスター、これだ。うわー！
Such a great video. It's like literally they made a music video just for that scene back in I believe 87. And so that was like one of the first like anime movies I've seen using the concept of city pop, and then realizing like during the 1990s, it was intertwined with like say anime intros and outros. And so, yep, definitely that's the one for using city pop for a mainstream animated movie.
A couple intros that I like, Dirty Pair. Have you guys heard Dirty Pair? There's some pretty cool intros, totally along the lines of this. Gundam Zeta, the second half of that season.
Let's try that.
That's a pretty cool intro. The anime, the animation on top of the music, it's a great intro experience. Yeah, one more.
This one?
Have you guys seen that intro before? The Zeta one? Okay, we don't have to show it. Unless you guys want to see that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Okay. We'll go with the crowd.
Alright, cool.
'If you guys have time to watch 55 episodes of that, if you've never seen it, I suggest. It's one of the, personally, I think this is one of the greatest Gundam series. I don't know if you like, 83 is good, Unicorn, if you guys like PUC, Century, stuff like that. Let's do the next slide. Okay. So, let's do the mix. Okay, so I just finished the mix last night. I've been working on this for like a month. So I have a bit.ly. So some of the songs I shared with you guys, it's put in a DJ mix. The bit.ly's there, you could listen, download it. And if you go in the file information, you can find a track listing. I will say there's 3 tracks I could not translate because it was literally in Japanese. Like, I didn't know how. I just put a question mark on those. But it's about 72 minutes of just city pop. If you follow, we'll share our social media handles. If you follow me, I have 2 other city pop mixes I made. The first one is more like early 80s, the second one was like mid 80s, and this last one I just shared.
Or do you guys want to mix at your party? We're always down, so thank you.